It's such a shame that football is almost over, man, and we've only just begun. We got conference championships next week. We're entering the last third of the regular season of the NFL. Man, time really does fly when we have fun with the football thing. I'm not going to enjoy conference championship week that much because we're not in it. I will, however, enjoy the chaotic nature of what could happen in these conference championships, the biggest games perhaps besides the playoff. But before then, welcome back to Grizzly Talks Football. We got to get through the final regular season week of the season. That's right, we have week 14 college football reactions along with the reaction to the week 15 AP poll. I know that doesn't mean any jack shit, but it's my duty to bring it to you, whether we like it or not. If you are new to this series and you want to see every single video, I will leave a link in the description with the full playlist so you could go watch every video so you're all caught up. And you also have it for new future videos whenever I post them. Be sure to hit the red subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you don't miss a single video. Make sure you smash that like button as well. Without further ado, let's get to the games. Kicking things off was College Game Day in College Station, where the Texas Longhorns, number 3 in the country, took down the 20th ranked Texas A&M Aggies 17-7. Texas had a 17-0 lead, and A&M just could not recover. This was a very defensive battle, and the Longhorns just had a better offense than A&M, plain and simple. Completion percentage for both of these quarterbacks were solid. It's just the turnovers, the touchdown rates that were the main difference, to be fair. We had Quinn Ewers with 17-28 for 220 yards, a touchdown, and a pick, with Marcel Reed having 70% completions, fortunately only 150 yards and a pick. Oh yeah, and by the way, A&M's defense just couldn't stop Trey Wisner apparently. 6 yards to carry and 190 yards on the ground, and then leading receiving was Matthew Golden with 3 catches for 73 yards. Oh yeah, and hey, Arch Manning got a rushing touchdown. Obviously no touchdowns for the offense of A&M. It was a defensive touchdown for the Aggies. Rushing wise, it wasn't so good. Receiving was a little bad. Yeah, it was just a rough offensive game for A&M. On the day, 2 sacks for Vernon Broughton, an interception by Michael Taft. I hope I said that right. Forced fumble by Leonel Lafau with a recovery by Broughton. Man, he absolutely carried through the pass rush. They did a good job stopping the pass and the run all game. As for Texas A&M, we had only 1 sack from Torian York, and he also had a recovery, forced fumble by Cassius Howell, and the interception return for a touchdown was by Will Lee. Not even a single offensive touchdown. The touchdown came on defense for A&M. Let me tell you, rivalry week, the craziest shit happens. Just in this case, it didn't really become chaotic at all. It was just defensive battle, and A&M was able to outlast the Aggies at the end of the day. Good win, Longhorns, and good luck in the SEC Championship. Yeah, I was right about you guys. Well, what did we just see on Big Noon Kickoff? We just saw a 6-5 Michigan Wolverines team take down the number 2 team in the country, Ohio State, 13-10. Let me just say, it was 10-10 for almost 30 minutes, and then Michigan gets a field goal, stops Ohio State on 4th down, and that's the ball game. Obviously, the worst offensive performance of the season for Ohio State, and because of that, they're not going to the Big Ten Championship. Penn State is. That is because of the 1 loss in conference teams as of Penn State and Indiana. Ohio State, that's their 2nd loss. That's in conference play. Let me just say, the quarterback performance was just complete dog shit. We had Davis Warren only have 62 passing yards with 2 interceptions. Is he Bo Nix 2.0? And then Will Howard, at least he threw a touchdown. Unfortunately, he also threw 2 interceptions. Luckily for Michigan, Khalil Mullins showed up for the game, 120 yards and a score on the day, with the lead receiver being Peyton O'Leary with an 18-yard reception. What the hell, man? Rushing game for the Buckeyes was completely non-existent, and the only touchdown was to Jeremiah Smith, with 50 receiving yards from Carnell Tate and Emeka Egbuka. It was another defensive battle in a big game. We had Michigan getting Picks from Makari Page and Amir Hall. No sacks. 3 passes defensed. Wow. Like, they were able to stop the run. Not so much to pass, but they did enough to win. And as for the Buckeyes, unable to stop the run game even with the Donovan Edwards injury for some reason. 2 interceptions by Jack Sawyer. I saw that pick. It was at the goal line. And Caleb Downs also got an interception. Pass defense was elite. Unfortunately, the Russian defense, ouch, not so much. Unfortunately, the Buckeyes are going to the playoffs no matter what. But this was definitely a bad blow for the team. Ryan Day could have his job on the line because he can't beat Michigan 4 straight years. Michigan beat them for 4 consecutive years. Embarrassing if you're an Ohio State fan. I guess you have the playoff? Up next, we travel to South Carolina for the Battle of the Palmetto State, with South Carolina outlasting the Clemson Tigers 17-14. So despite this, Clemson's in the ACC Championship. I'm going to tell you why in just a couple minutes at most. This game was also pretty defensive, and it came down to defense on the last drive of the game. Obviously, passing, it wasn't terrible, but it also wasn't like an elite performance you would see in a, let's say, Iowa State game. Sellers obviously had 160 passing yards and interception. Passing was never his forte. As for Clay Klubnik, he had 280 yards and an interception, no touchdowns on 67% completions. You want to know why the passing for both of these quarterbacks were not the main reason of this game being competitive? It was the rushing of these 2 quarterbacks. Both of them had 2 touchdowns on the day. Clay Klubnik had 62 rushing yards, while Norris Sellers had 166 rushing yards on 10 yards a carry. Antonio Williams led receiving for Clemson with 8 catches for 99 yards, and it was Nick Harper for South Carolina with 3 catches for 51. 1 sack by Barmont Scott, a fumble recovery by Tonka Hemingway, and an interception, the game-sealing interception by Demetrius Knight. The highlights for South Carolina's defense. Passing yardage, not so much being able to stop. Rushing offense, not able to stop Clay Klubnik. 2 forced fumbles by Clemson, also 2 sacks. Forced fumbles by T.J. Parker, who also recovered 1, and Avion Terrell with recovery also by Barrett Carter. And there was also an interception by Khalil Barnes. Unfortunately, that was all for nothing because you can't stop a guy by the name of Norris Sellers. By the way, South Carolina, I love that quarterback's name. I also want to give shout out to Alex Herrera. He was the only kicker out of these 2 that kicked the field goal. That was the main difference in the game. It was a 3-point lead because of a made field goal by South Carolina. And now Dabo's only hope is winning the ACC championship game against SMU. That championship game is basically win and you're in. As for South Carolina, we'll have to see where fate takes the Gamecocks. Probably not to the playoff, unfortunately. Remember when I said that Clemson's in the ACC championship? This game is the reason why. Syracuse pulls out an absolute stunner against the then number 6 Miami Hurricanes. Miami, you had one job, and that is just to beat Syracuse, and you couldn't do it. I think that just cost the Kings a playoff spot. Although, I think they should at least get a chance at the playoff. Not freaking Alabama. Why is the playoff poll being so biased for the SEC? Like, it's ridiculous. Anyways, both quarterbacks this time around had a very good game. Cam Ward, 350 yards and 2 touchdowns. As for Kyle McCord, a former Ohio State quarterback, 380 yards on 26 of 36 and 3 touchdowns. Rushing game for both teams were solid. Mark Fletcher had 2 touchdowns, and Damian Martinez had 84 rushing yards on 8 yards to carry and a score, while Syracuse's LaQuint Allen had 82 yards and 2 touchdowns on 22 carries. Crazy stuff. No surprise, Xavier Restrepo is leading the receiving corps for Miami with 9 catches, 150 yards and a score. Jacoby George had 6 catches, 120 yards as well, with the other touchdown going to Elijah Arroyo. 2 players had 3 touchdowns. Jackson Meeks, 7 catches, 110 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Trevor Payne had 6 catches, 128 yards, and the other touchdown. 2 sacks for the Canes defense, 2 forced fumbles by Tyler Barron and Cam Pruitt, who also recovered a fumble. Unfortunately, the defense didn't step up when it mattered most. Unfortunately for Miami, they were all offense, barely any defense. The only sack for Syracuse was by Fadil Diggs, and the main defensive play of the game was Dever Grant forcing a fumble and recovering it for a 56-yard touchdown. Shout out to Dever Grant on the defense for the defensive touchdown. That was a big difference in that game. Congratulations, Syracuse. You are going to be ranked in the college football playoff poll in like a low position, but still, you don't even have to play in the ACC championship, and you just took Miami out of it, and now Clemson's in. Thanks, Syracuse. Good luck in both of your bowl games. And unfortunately, we had only one other upset, and it was on a Friday night lights college football game. Number 17, I believe, Tulane lost to a now 10-win Memphis team, 34-24, eliminating the American Athletic Conference from getting the playoff spot. Come on, Memphis, you couldn't at least let Tulane go 10-2 and have a chance to make the playoffs in the American Championship against Army? Of course not. American Athletic Conference is all about chaos. So if you're wondering why is Memphis not in, well, Tulane's other 2 losses came against out-of-conference opponents, specifically Oklahoma and Kansas State. Kansas State was in Yulman, and Oklahoma, I believe, was in Norman? I'm not too sure. Both quarterbacks played pretty solidly. Seth Hennigan, 75% completions, 220 yards and 2 touchdowns, with Darian Mensah having 320 yards on 21-33, 2 touchdowns, and unfortunately an interception. Yeah, if you can see the team stats, the turnovers killed the Green Wave. And Mario Anderson also did as well. 180 yards and 24 carries, 8 yards a carry and a touchdown, with Gregory Desrosiers getting the other rushing touchdown. And as for Tulane, the only highlight was Arnold Barnes getting the rushing touchdown. As for receiving, Gregory Desrosiers also had 2 receiving touchdowns in this game on 8 catches for 84 yards, with Rod Taylor having 7 catches for 96. And as for Tulane, Mario Williams, a USC transfer, he transferred to the team that beat him in the Cotton Bowl. 7 catches, 130 yards, and a score, with the other touchdown going to Shaz Preston. 2 sacks from Memphis' defense, and they also had 2 forced fumbles. Both of them forced by Cortland Marsh, and he also recovered one along with AJ Watts. Oh yeah, and the results show David Ross with an interception. Defense played flawlessly unless you allowed the 2 passing touchdowns and 1 rushing touchdown for Tulane. Believe it or not, Tulane actually had 4 sacks in this game, and there was also a forced fumble by Cameron Hamilton. Fortunately, that was not recovered by Tulane. It was covered by Memphis. Unfortunately, they were unable to force any turnovers on Seth Hennigan, and they couldn't even stop the run either. Fortunately, defense fell apart. Really upsetting that Tulane and MVOS have fallen off the tightrope once again. But don't worry, next season will probably produce a playoff contender for Tulane. Hopefully. Good luck in the American Championship against Army. Hope you can stop the option. And I'm going to talk about one more game, and I know you guys see it. This was the 8-overtime thriller between Georgia Tech and Georgia. God, I wanted Georgia to lose so bad, man. Georgia Tech just blew it in overtimes. But seriously, the 4th quarter was a bunch of bullshit. Georgia should have never even forced overtime to begin with. But that's why we played the game, right? Haynes King threw 2 touchdowns along with 300 passing yards in this game. Carson Beck also threw 300 yards, but 5 touchdowns. Jeez. Well, of course, some of them were 2-point conversions, but Haynes King also had 3 rushing touchdowns along with 110 yards on the day. Jamal Haynes having 7 yards to carry and 91 yards to add to it. Nate Frazier had the only rushing touchdown in the game. Rushing defense for Georgia Tech was actually pretty solid. As for receiving, the leading receiver was actually Eric Singleton with 8 catches for 86 yards and a score. The other touchdown went to, of course, Jamal Haynes. As for Georgia, we had 2 touchdowns for Dominic Lovett, 1 for Cass Jones, 1 for London Humphreys, and 1 for tight end Oscar Delp. Man, Carson Beck had 5 touchdowns but seriously, the DPIs are getting out of hand. The two DPIs, one of them was where the offensive player Georgia actually pushed off and then got called against Georgia Tech. Like, how does that happen? And two, the DPI was called on a ball that was tipped. These refs do not even know the own rules. Like, come on, man. Why does ref ball have to decide a game every freaking time? 2 cents for Tech's defense. They were able to get a fumble recovery from Jackson Hamilton. And Micaiah Scott and Saeed Gibbs also had forced fumbles on the day. Unfortunately, their defense broke down when it mattered most. Oh yeah, and there was also another forced fumble. Dan Jackson forced a fumble when he used the crown of his helmet on Haynes King. Like, come on, man. Where is this coming from, referees? It was also recovered by Chaz Chambliss, and the other forced fumble was by Tyrion Ingram Dawkins. Penalties screwed the Jackets in the fourth quarter, and then Georgia Tech fell flat on their face in overtime. Which ones? Well, quite a few of them. Here's why I wanted Georgia to lose so bad. If Georgia would have lost to Georgia Tech, and maybe A&M beats Texas, then whoever wins the ACC would be the only one in the college football playoff. Actually, not so fast. Not if the playoff poll wants to be so fucking biased in their damn poll to put SEC teams who have 3 losses and have no business being in the playoff, getting them in that slots over more deserving teams, like a 10-win Arizona State team or a 10-win Miami team. Like, come on, polls, do better. I embrace chaos. Fortunately, I live in it. And the final regular season AP poll of the season is here. Let's get straight to it. We have Oregon still at number 1, the only undefeated team in the country still. Texas at 2, I understand. Penn State and Notre Dame moved up 3 and 4. Georgia at 5. Arguably not, but then again, they are ahead of Tennessee, who they beat. Meanwhile, Tennessee at 6, Ohio State 7. They dropped only to 7 behind a 1-loss SMU team. I understand being ahead of Indiana because of head-to-head, but it could be behind SMU, at least. But then again, Ohio State lost to the number 1 team in the country, but then he also lost to an unranked Michigan team. Like, that should... I don't know. SMU at 8, Indiana at 9, and Boise State in the top 10 in the AP poll. Crazy stuff. But what the fuck is Alabama doing at 11? They should be 12 or 13. Arizona State should be ahead. Miami should not have dropped all the way down to 14. That was a good Syracuse team they played. Carolina's at 13, and 15 is Ole Miss. Not sure why they dropped for some reason. Or maybe that was just the AP poll. Who knows? Iowa State at 16, BYU at 17. The other 2 Big 12 teams in there. Iowa State will be playing the Big 12 championship. Not sure why we lost the game to Houston. I also decided not to talk about that game, unfortunately, because, it didn't really mean anything except for pride on senior night. But for some reason, if we lose to Houston, then Colorado wouldn't make it to the Big 12 championship. I know Coach Prime is pissed. Colorado's at 20, while Clemson and UNLV are 18 and 19. Nice to see some Group of 5 representation in the top 20, let alone the top 10. And then we have Illinois at 21, Mizzou at 22, Syracuse, Army, and Memphis round out the top 25. And can we also say that College Game Day, we need them to change their name to SEC Game Day. Like, you picked the ACC championship instead of the Big Ten championship. We got 2 versus 5 potentially, and 1 versus 3. Like, come on, College Game Day, you can't do that. Lucas Oil Stadium deserves a College Game Day, and you know it. I don't know, man. I don't know how much the SEC schools just pay you to get College Game Day dedication or to get in the playoff, but it's getting ridiculous. Also, I swear, if Alabama, a 3-loss team who lost to an unranked Vanderbilt and an unranked Oklahoma team, gets in the playoff, I'm going to be livid. Miami should be ahead of Alabama if playoff polls know what's up. If they know what's good, they should not let Alabama get in there. Any 3-loss team, period, should be DQ'd from the playoff. Seriously. Anyways, that is going to do it for this episode of Grizzly Talks Football. I know I'm missing the game day pick, but I'm going to be doing conference championship picks on Wednesday when I reveal the playoff poll for this week. Anyways, make sure if you like this episode, make sure you smash that like button, hit that red subscribe button down there, make sure you hit that bell so you don't miss a single one of my videos. Anyways, this is the Grizz, and that's all from me, and until next time, I'll see you guys later. Peace!